Back to the channel. Today we're going to unravel some incredibly complex events in Genoa. Rumors are circulating around the Newman family, but what's the truth? In this video, I'll summarize the plot points that will be revealed in the next episode. Stay tuned to see what happens. Welcome back to our channel. Spoilers Tuesday, the 7th of July, 2026, your ultimate destination for the most explosive and heart-wrenching updates from Genoa City. Today is a brilliant day to unravel the darkest mysteries hiding behind closed doors. We have a monumental update that will leave you absolutely breathless, as the fate of one of our most beloved patriarchs hangs in the balance. Let us dive right into the drama. The opulent halls of the Abbott mansion have been irrevocably stained with tragedy, transforming a place of historical grandeur into a chilling crime scene. Diane Jenkins and Kyle Abbott are still reeling from the unimaginable horror of discovering Jack Abbott brutally stabbed, his lifeblood pooling on the pristine dining room floor. The frantic, desperate moments of administering emergency CPR and the agonizing wail of the ambulance sirens have left an indelible scar on their souls. Diane, her hands and clothes soaked in the blood of the man she loves, is trapped in a waking nightmare, while Kyle struggles to process the sheer brutality of the attack orchestrated by the psychotic Patty Williams. As Jack is rushed through the sterile, unforgiving corridors of Genoa City Memorial Hospital, his pulse fading with every passing second, the entire Abbott family is plunged into a vortex of despair. Will Jack's legendary resilience be enough to pull him back from the precipice of death, or is this the tragic end of his storied legacy? Inside the high-stakes environment of the emergency operating room, the surgical team fights a desperate battle against the ticking clock. Initially, the intense surgical intervention appears to be a miraculous success, with the lead surgeon managing to stabilize Jack's catastrophic internal bleeding. The rhythmic, reassuring beep of the electrocardiogram offers a fleeting moment of hope to the exhausted medical staff. However, in a terrifying and abrupt twist of fate, a sudden, inexplicable complication strikes the operating table. Jack's vital signs plummet violently, alarms blare in a chaotic symphony of panic, and the medical team scrambles to counteract a physiological collapse that defies all logical medical explanation. The atmosphere in the room shifts from controlled precision to sheer, unadulterated terror as they fight to revive his failing systems. What dark, unseen physiological anomaly or sinister external intervention could have caused such a catastrophic failure in the middle of a stabilizing procedure? The heavy, agonizing weight in the hospital corridor is shattered when the lead surgeon finally emerges, his expression a grim mask of defeat and sorrow. Diane and Kyle, clinging to each other for emotional survival, are delivered the most devastating news imaginable. Jack has technically survived the grueling surgery, but the sudden, mysterious complication has plunged him into a profound, unresponsive coma. The doctors somberly warn that Jack is teetering on the devastating edge of a permanent vegetative state, his brilliant mind trapped in an impenetrable darkness. The sheer emotional devastation of this prognosis crashes over Diane and Kyle like a tidal wave, drowning their previous hopes in an ocean of unimaginable grief. The patriarch of the Abbott family, a man of unparalleled intellect and vigor, is now reduced to a fragile shell dependent on whirring life support machines. How will the Abbott family survive the agonizing reality that Jack might be locked away in his own mind forever? As the initial shock of the devastating prognosis begins to wane, Diane Jenkins's profound grief rapidly morphs into a fierce, blinding fury. Diane, a woman whose entire life has been defined by her cunning survival instincts, outright refuses to accept the surgeon's vague explanations regarding Jack's sudden complication. She scrutinizes every word, every averted gaze of the medical staff, her sharp mind detecting the faint, terrifying scent of a cover-up. She fiercely questions the competence, the protocols, and the hidden motives of the entire surgical team, convinced that a man of Jack's strength does not simply slip into a vegetative state without a sinister catalyst. Diane's protective rage transforms her into a relentless interrogator, demanding access to surgical logs, and threatening to unleash a legal firestorm upon the hospital. Is Diane's paranoia merely the byproduct of her immense trauma, or has her brilliant, manipulative mind uncovered the first threads of a horrific medical conspiracy? While Diane wages war against the hospital administration, Kyle Abbott is crushed beneath the suffocating weight of his father's potential permanent absence. The realization that Jack may never wake up to guide him again leaves Kyle emotionally paralyzed, but the harsh realities of the corporate world afford him no time to grieve. Jabot Cosmetics, the glittering crown jewel of the Abbott legacy, is suddenly left entirely vulnerable, effectively decapitated by Jack's incapacitation. The power vacuum at the top of the corporate ladder is a bleeding wound in the business world, and ruthless competitors are already circling like vultures, eager to dismantle the empire Jack spent his life building. Kyle knows that he must step up to defend his family's legacy, but he is terrified of making a fatal misstep without his father's legendary guidance. Can Kyle summon the ruthless strength required to protect Jabot from impending corporate slaughter while his heart shatters for his comatose father? The shadows of doubt cast by Diane begin to spread, infecting the minds of everyone who loves Jack Abbott. The whispered rumors of severe medical malpractice slowly evolve into a much darker, far more terrifying theory: intentional sabotage. Given the highly calculated and psychotic nature of Patty Williams's initial attack and her elaborate frame-up of Diane, it is not a far leap to suspect that Patty's sinister reach extends into the hospital itself. Could someone inside the operating room have been bribed, blackmailed, or manipulated into ensuring that Jack Abbott never wakes up to testify against his attacker? The horrifying possibility that an assassin wielding a syringe or a scalpel was hiding in plain sight among the surgical team sends shivers down the spines of the Abbott family. Who would possess the immense power, the limitless resources, and the sheer unadulterated malice required to infiltrate a sterile operating room and execute a silent hit on Jack Abbott? Observing the escalating chaos and the profound agony of the Abbott family, Sharon Newman finds herself drawn into the dark epicenter of this medical mystery. Armed with her deep psychological insight and her innate, fierce desire to protect her loved ones, Sharon recognizes the subtle, terrifying discrepancies that others have overlooked. She sees the frantic, evasive body language of certain hospital employees and senses the suffocating tension radiating from the surgical wing. Driven by a relentless quest for the truth and a deep-seated empathy for Jack's plight, Sharon decides to launch a highly covert, incredibly dangerous investigation of her own. She understands that confronting the medical establishment directly would only result in closed doors, so she chooses to operate in the shadows, navigating the hospital's labyrinthine politics. Will Sharon's stealthy pursuit of justice expose the horrific truth, or will it place her directly in the crosshairs of a ruthless, unseen enemy? Sharon's clandestine investigation requires her to utilize every ounce of her charm, intelligence, and psychological acumen. She begins by subtly interrogating the nursing staff, the anesthesiologists, and the surgical assistants who were present during Jack's fateful operation. Under the guise of delivering comforting coffees and offering a sympathetic ear, Sharon meticulously pieces together the fragmented timeline of the surgery. She probes for any anomalies, a momentary distraction, an unlogged medication administration, an unauthorized presence in the sterile corridor. Her keen eyes scan the hospital's digital shift logs, searching for any sudden changes in the schedule or any staff members who requested immediate, unexplained leave following the procedure. What dark, buried secrets will Sharon unearth as she digs deeper into the sterilized, highly guarded world of Genoa City Memorial's surgical department? The meticulous, exhausting hours of Sharon's covert surveillance finally yield a terrifying breakthrough. She identifies a specific member of Jack's surgical team whose behavior has become increasingly erratic and highly suspicious since the operation. This individual is observed making furtive, panicked phone calls in isolated stairwells, constantly glancing over their shoulder with wide, terrified eyes, and desperately attempting to access restricted medical files that have since been locked down. Sharon watches from the shadows as this rogue medical professional exhibits all the classic, undeniable symptoms of a person crumbling under the weight of a monumental, deadly secret. The sheer panic radiating from the suspect confirms Diane's worst fears. Jack's complication was not an act of God, but a deliberate, calculated act of malice. How long can this terrified conspirator maintain their silence before the crushing pressure of their guilt forces a catastrophic confession? As Sharon digs into the background of the suspicious surgical team member, a chilling network of historical animosities begins to emerge. She discovers hidden financial transactions and erased communication logs that hint at a profound, dangerous connection to Jack Abbott's most notorious enemies. Could this rogue medical staffer be a sleeper agent planted by the corrupt, malevolent doctor? Lawrence Markham, acting to ensure Patty Williams's psychotic narrative remains unchallenged? Or does the conspiracy stretch even further, perhaps touching the untouchable empire of Victor Newman, who has a long, bitter history of ruthless warfare against Jack? The realization that Jack's comatose state might be the result of a massive, coordinated strike by his historic rivals elevates the stakes from a mere medical tragedy to a full-blown, lethal conspiracy. Which of Jack's legendary adversaries pulled the strings to silence him, and what will they do when they realize Sharon is closing in on their pawn? While Sharon operates in the treacherous shadows, the Abbott family realizes they must form an impenetrable fortress of unity to survive the impending storm. Ashley Abbott rushes back to Genoa City, her brilliant analytical mind immediately focusing on the medical data, while Tracy provides the emotional glue required to keep the family from shattering entirely. Diane and Kyle, setting aside their own profound traumas, join forces with Ashley and Tracy to protect Jack's physical body and to fiercely defend the vulnerable gates of Abbott Cosmetics. They implement extreme, unprecedented security measures at the hospital, banning all unapproved medical personnel from Jack's room and hiring private guards to stand watch around the clock. This united Abbott front is a powerful, awe-inspiring display of familial devotion, a clear message to their unseen enemies that they will not be broken. Can the combined strength, intellect, and sheer willpower of the Abbott family withstand the relentless, unseen forces actively trying to destroy them? Despite the family's fierce protective measures, the agonizing reality of Jack's deteriorating condition looms over them like a suffocating shroud. The rhythmic, monotonous beeping of his life support monitors serves as a constant, torturous reminder of his fragility. Every passing hour that Jack remains trapped in his deep, unresponsive coma decreases the likelihood of a full neurological recovery. The medical specialists warn that if the specific cause of the surgical complication, whether a toxic substance or a targeted neurological disruption, is not identified and reversed immediately, the damage to Jack's brain will become tragically permanent. The race against time transforms into a desperate, breathless sprint, as Sharon and the Abbotts realize they are fighting not just for justice, but for Jack's very soul. Will they be able to uncover the precise nature of the medical sabotage in time to administer a miracle cure, or is the clock destined to run out on Jack Abbott's brilliant life? The tension in Genoa City reaches a boiling, explosive climax as Sharon Newman finally corners the rogue medical staffer in a dark, isolated wing of the hospital. The confrontation is charged with electric, palpable danger, as Sharon leverages her psychological dominance to break the suspect's fragile resolve. She lays out the undeniable evidence of their erratic behavior